I'd like to call the October 11th, 2022 meeting of the Winchester Board of Education to order. It is 7:05. And can we please begin with the Pledge of Allegiance? The flag is up there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll go to the roll. If you're not here, raise your hand. I don't see any hands, so let the record show that all members are present and accounted for tonight. And we can move on to the agenda review. We do have one item that we're going to be adding to the agenda tonight. Dawn, if you want to tell us what that is?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest a motion to add the Aspire contract to the board meeting tonight under discussion and possible action, item D.
Okay, so there's a motion to that effect.
I'll make it.
Nora. Second from Jeanette. All in favor of that agenda change? Unanimous. Thank you. Comments from the chair, that would be me. I've been gone for a while. I have no idea what you guys have been up to. So I have no idea.
Did you read the minutes?
I did read the minutes. It all sounded very good to me. So we'll move on to presentation. Yeah. Oh, no, first not.
On discussion on Columbus Day, Columbus Day holiday.
All right.
Under discussion of possible action items.
That will make that item E. Behind on number 12E. You have a motion. Is there a second to that motion? From Sandra, all in favor for discussion purposes? Okay. Looks like we have 1, 2. I will be happy to discuss 3, 4. Cheryl is with a nay. Against?
No.
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 Okay. So the 7, 6, 8, 6, 4, 3 against.
06
6
in favor.
Yeah. 3 opposed. 3 opposed.
Okay.
All right, presentations. Do we have any this evening?
No.
The next item on our agenda is an opportunity for public comments.
Jeanette, could you grab the public comment sheet to see if we have anyone for public comment, please? Sorry, I'm trying to sandwich behind the table here.
Okay, so we do have one person who would like to speak, so I will read our policy on public comment. Winchester Board of Education welcomes you to this meeting. There are 2 times during the meeting set aside to hear comments from the public. It is listed on the agenda you received upon entering the meeting room and should be limited to agenda items. We would appreciate your adherence to the following rules and guidelines. Complete the requested information on the sign-in sheet if you wish to speak. State your name and address when you call upon to speak. Address your comments to the chair. Please do not mention the name of any specific person. As a matter of law, individuals have the right to be present in discussions of this type must take place in executive sessions. State your thoughts, concerns, or questions clearly and concisely to ensure that other citizens have an opportunity to comment and that board members can complete the work in a reasonable hour. We ask that you limit the comments to 3 minutes. It is not the practice of the board to respond to dialogue, comments, and questions from the floor of the meeting. The board has instructed the superintendent of schools to prepare an appropriate response in a timely fashion. Commentary should only be made during public comment. No commentary will be permitted during a regular business meeting. And finally, to be sure that the concern or statement gets proper attention, it may be in your best interest to speak to a building administrator or the superintendent of schools before making a presentation to the board. The superintendent has assured us that she will keep us informed of questions or response to the community and will inform us of the actions she will take. We hope that you enjoy your time with us and that you find it. So with that being said, we do have one person who would like to speak this evening, Mr. O'Brien.
Yes. Getting to the point, 11 Hillside Avenue, in Winchester, Connecticut. Doug, you weren't here at the last meeting, but Nora graciously read the same so-called policy, I believe 3 times during the meeting. And I just want to say that that policy is unconstitutional. Okay. Number one, you cannot tell a member of the public what they can or cannot say. Their own words stand on what they say, either thumbs up, that it's true, or a thumbs down, that it is not true. Number one, the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States states that you have freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, freedom to petition, freedom of the press. And need I say anything else? You cannot tell me I can't speak about any other subject, including the Yankees and the Red Sox. I don't know what team you like, but that doesn't matter here. What matters is under the First Amendment and the Constitution, which Melody told me tonight that she sent me an email, went to the wrong email, but that's okay. She communicated with me in a reasonable manner. What I want to say is, I hope that you go back to the drawing board in regards to your policy on public speaking, because any member of the public, any member can speak to this board about any issue. And they also can bring up names of anyone, including you, Doug. You're a duly elected board member, a chairman of this board. So noting that, I hope that you see to it that that is changed, okay? Because it's not right. And we need things to be right in this town. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that aren't right. The last vote that took place in regards to another policy, in regards to gender specific, that isn't right either. We want to teach our children in this town, okay, that there are genders and there are specifics with that gender that God enabled them with, unalienable rights. And by the way, free speech is an unalienable right, given not by the government, not by that First Amendment, but by God. You know who taught me that? My mother, because she told me I had a big mouth, and I do. And I just want to say that hundreds of thousands of Americans fought and died for that right, and it should be respected. So as you go on your merry way, happily, with your policies and everything else, I hope that you do the right thing. Regardless of party, regardless of what your affiliations may be. And I thank you for letting me speak. And by the way, 3 minutes is just too short of a time to let the members of the public. And I also disagree with your non-dialogue policy. So you can't dialogue with a person who's coming before the board in regards to whatever issue that may concern them. It's very important that you do dialogue with parents, especially, or members of the public, because they're the ones who are paying the salaries for the superintendent and all the teachers and all the principals. But I think I'm over my time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, and I believe we have 2 sets of minutes for approval. This evening, the minutes of the regular BOE meeting on September 13th, and of the committee meetings on September 20th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I have amendment, I suppose, or edit that I'd like to make.
And just make sure you speak louder.
Yep, okay. Okay. On page 8, I'd like to make a short edit. It's not significant. It's just for the record. I'm trying to figure out where I am. But it's amendment. Page 8 is okay. Just needs to change some numbers. We had a motion to approve 4118-114A, gifted and talented. That is not the appropriate policy number. Policy number should be 6172.0 1A, gifted and talented.
Continuing on with that same one, page 9. Center, public comment. Her name is Lindy Bravo. Yes.
You know, certainly,
Curriculum committee meeting, center of the page, question, agenda review question. Is it that 20-minute?
What page are you on?
11. Thank you. So agenda review question, is it stat 20-minute, have a 20-minute rest? I'm not quite sure what that's.
I remember the question. The question was, does sixth grade have a 20-minute recess?
Okay. Page 12. New business, second paragraph. Just for clarity, last 6 years, the board has had a vision or has asked for a vision.
Asked.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought that was the whole purpose of that meeting was to develop that.
Should be asked for a vision of what?
Saying new business, five paragraph, assistant setup. The third sentence from the end is the process is time consuming and will take 3 different age groups. So I'm not sure what will it take for different age groups?
The vision of a learner.
Yeah,
There will be 3 different segments of vision for a learner. One that is elementary based up to sixth grade.
no, I understand that, but when you read it, the process is time consuming and will take 3 different age groups.
And
I'm trying to understand how that is.
I would say period, process is time consuming, period.
That makes sense.
and
Will include 3 different age groups.
Next page, budget finance, committee meeting. Sorry. Page 13.
So, on page 12, so Sandra Stuart and Sal for about 3 volunteers, but said, I'm sorry, not volunteers.
Oh, big touch. I just wanted to-
Doug is on that committee though, so yes, adjust that to say Doug and Sandra.
Wait a minute, this is. Didn't you go and get that? I know. But there's 2 people that still have to call. Yeah. Oh, well, okay, I thought there's 2 people. Page 13, budget and committee meeting facilities. Like new business, 1, 2, 3, under air conditioning. HVAC grant update, what was usually pitched to 70,000? Okay,
apply.
We would
think you would pay it.
apply
For $70,000.
Oh, okay, got it.
for a $70,000 grant.
Thank you.
Barb, I've made those adjustments on my notes so we can compare.
Are you done?
Yeah, thank you.
So if everyone agrees with the changes from Nora and Chris, it's your motion with those changes and Sal, to approve minutes as amended.
Make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Second, unanimous. Thank you. And with that, we can move on to favorite report. Today, have a motion for-
Talk a little bit about, Annette's possibility of, which I think we can have.
we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, I participated in the finance committee, and so I think the minutes are gonna be checked out for that shortly with the review. I'll have to look back.
Thank you.
Just make sure you speak loud enough.
I think they're just talking to, I believe, Josh and Melanie about, we're just in the discussion pages right now about. That was actually assigned already as part of the selection program. So it is, unless the budget changes next year, the city would still be. Which version has rolled versus ASO, all that is kind of still. Up for discussion.
We are gonna have opportunities to discuss that, of course, with the school themselves.
I have it, yeah, and I have it on the finance agenda for October, coming up here at the end of the month. Several board members have asked if TGS would be willing to join in the police chief into that conversation.
Would it be possible to bring in, board of selectmen person there as well?
I think that Josh and Todd are handling that separately.
All right. We do have under correspondence, a resignation letter this evening.
Just one.
That's a nice thing.
So that feels good that like we've had a really stable start right now. So I would like you to please accept with regret a resignation for Hope. She was a paraprofessional in our district, so accept with regret, please.
Make a motion to accept with regret.
Thank you, that is unanimous. Superintendent's report.
We've been busy. So under instruction, all certified and non-certified staff have participated in professional development regarding positive engagement strategies with students. WPS and TGS are engaged in a series of work related to portrait of a learner. We will have 3 full-day trainings to support this work, and our first one is tomorrow. Students have had their fall assessments administered. Teachers are in the process of finalizing their learning goals for the 22-23 school year evaluations. Our open houses were held at both school buildings. We've attended and participated in monthly PTO meetings. Interviews have been held for a long-term substitute special education teacher and paraprofessionals. We are still outstanding on 2 paraprofessional openings and 1 long-term substitute position for a back-to-back maternity leave for 2 individuals. We are working with a company called Aspire to support our special education programming for selected students and staff members. We have a small grant that we're working with them right now, but we have a larger opportunity that will be coming before the board tonight for consideration. Statewide curriculum committee meetings have been held regarding statewide resources and specifically really looking at reading legislation, which we'll talk again about tonight. Selected staff members have been trained on online DCF reporting and minimal facts training. We actually did that training today. Several teachers have received Tier 1 behavioral supports for 5 consecutive days in their classrooms. Under operations, we have coordinated the school safety meeting and planning sessions. We also hosted the school security community meeting forum on October 5th. We've held a Hinsdale school renovation committee. I met with our town manager on various topics throughout the past month, participated in Litchfield County Superintendent's meeting, participated in the CAPS legislative meetings, biweekly COVID health meetings, attended multiple curriculum meetings at the state and local levels regarding the science of reading legislation, attended a school law seminar regarding updated legislation, attended CABE's training on parliamentary procedures, attended CAPS accountability and performance meetings. Yeah, of course.
It's training on parliamentary.
So it was really going over Robert's rules and how to effectively make sure that you're running a Board of Education meeting that meets the guidelines in Robert's rules, and kind of just a basic refresher on meeting norms and good practices when it comes to running meetings.
I know we're not religious followers of Robert's rules, but if you come up with anything.
I think our process is pretty solid. I will look back in my notes to kind of see if there's anything that's coming before us. The one thing that they did change, and this was actually legislatively, that if you are hosting an online meeting in terms of like participation with an audience. So right now, a regular in-person meeting is 24 hours. The online meetings are 48 hours. So that's something that we have to be cognizant about in terms of, we don't typically do online meetings as board meetings, but if it would come to the point that we would, then we would need to be pre-planned for a 48-hour notice instead. Under enrollment data, our enrollments are holding pretty steady right now. We're at 594 across our district. We have our attendance, which I'm so happy to see, like coming back down into like semi-normal capacity, not up in the 20s. We, even with the illnesses that we did see in September, which were quite a few, we are in the mid-teens. So that's so much better than where we were at any point last year. And I think, as I'm watching our attendance on a daily basis, I do see us heading in the right direction with that. So I'm pleased about that. Our enrollment at the Gilbert School is at 400 students. They have 9 international students and 1 out of district. The grade breakdown is on the following page. Looking at our first quarter budget summary for the fiscal year 23 under the appropriated budget. Right now, we're projecting a year-end balance of $121,000. This first quarter will be posted per legislation on our website, because we have to post our quarterly budgets to the website, which we will do.
Now, can I ask about language?
Of course.
I'm here. Okay, what changed in that line? Which line?
Professional technical services. It's short by 24.
Okay, it has to do with the services. No, services. Got it.
And on that same, on the budget, special ed out of district tuition, are we anticipating any costs there?
We do have some additional, we have another situation that we are ready to encounter potentially. And that will change over time.
It is included in the.
You did include it, Nancy?
Yeah.
You're one step ahead of me then.
I'm trying.
So that placement is these numbers.
I believe so, yes.
I will just remind the board, those out of district placement numbers flip and flop depending upon who's moving in and who's moving out, who we absorb based upon, any particular situation when it comes to expulsions, when it comes to kiddos moving into the district. So just be aware that that is a very fluid number, as you know, on a monthly basis. Looking at our grants, like last month, you can see now that we have a number that's settled down after now that we've taken out the and encumbered the numbers for the AC grants. So we're down to 417 as a projected year end, and that allows us to be able to roll over funds into the upcoming fiscal year, so we don't burn through them all at once. Our food service quarter budget right now, Nancy, we have it sitting at in the black by 10,000. It's probably a little higher than what we would normally like to see, but can you explain why?
Well, I mean, it's not a terrible number to be showing the balance of this structure, but it's a lot that has to do with anticipated grants being utilized, the supply chain grant, and also the CT growing for CT kids grant, which is a 50% reimbursement grant. So we anticipate using those this year, and that will certainly offset. And then there's also a request in the packet for another supply chain assistance grant for approval tonight. So you may see that pump up a little bit more, which will help us go through the next couple of years without going into the red.
You'll see in your packet, we have some lovely pictures of corn, some lettuce, and some apples. And those pictures are in there because we have partnerships with these food service grants. that help to get fresh fruits and vegetables from our local farmers and farmers markets within town. Some of the farms that you saw pictures of their products there are March Farms, which are very local, and the products that they've been bringing in to serve as part of the lunch are beautiful. So absolutely stunning. So we wanted to share a few pictures of fruits and vegetables with you this evening.
I have a question about the reduced lunch.
Yeah.
Who sets the reimbursement?
So it's a state, for the state, it comes from actually federal numbers that come in. So in order for your whole district to qualify for free and reduced lunch, the number that they look for is between 55% and ideally 65% or higher to make sure that your amount that you're getting reimbursed covers your cost basis. And then us getting some of these grants also helps to further, as you can see, bring up that black number there. So that way we're not operating in the red off of free and reduced.
But is there a per meal price that we get reimbursed?
Yes.
Or is that subject to change? If you get grants, does that diminish it?
No, it doesn't. It's a number that's set by the federal government, by the Food and Drug Administration. They set like it's like $3 or something. Yeah, but it's a set price for a breakfast, for a lunch, and then any other product. And it comes from them. So I want to take you on a little walk right now. And I want to take you on a walk regarding the science of reading. So not many times have you heard me say that I feel like the legislator and where we're at right now has had a lot of overreach into local Board of Education control and curriculum. I feel strongly right now that we've had a lot of overreach in terms of the state of Connecticut and where we're at with science of reading. So at the last minute during legislative session last year, there was legislation that was proposed and passed literally at the 19th hour that focused on the science of reading and making sure that districts in the state of Connecticut were teaching reading programs that had scientific backing, if you will, and research behind them. So there was a directive, if you will, to the State Board of Education to investigate which reading programs met the criteria for science of reading. Recently, and when I say recently, I'm talking within the last 3 weeks, the list of approved curriculums has come out. So as of last check, as part of CAPS, there was a survey that was sent out to superintendents asking you know, who is teaching these reading programs currently right now in the districts. And last Thursday, I believe it was, the results came out. So far, 65 districts had participated, and less than 1 in 10 districts is currently using one of those approved districts. One of the most used programs in the state, which is Lucy Calkins out of University of New York, which is the one that we use, is not on the list. So there is a process by which we can submit a waiver to be able to say, hey, we have all of these processes in place. We want to continue to use our reading program, which for us has shown great potential. You've seen the results, you've seen what we can do with it. There's always opportunities for us to do better and to make changes. However, I think our foundation right now is strong in terms of what our curricular expectations are and our instruction is around reading. So I want to share with you some information regarding this. I also, in my push around this, we've been an Alliance district and we've been a Commissioners Network district, which have been heavily involved in the curriculum, professional development support, and financial assistance in this district. The State Department of Education is the one that blessed, if you will, our reading programs all the way through this point. Nancy, I'm going to ask you to come up and bring me those financials that I asked for this evening. I want to give you a small glimpse into the amount of money that has been invested into our current reading program and paint the picture of if we were to change course right now, this is what we could potentially, if we chose to go with one of these 5 programs, look at in terms of an investment. Now, mind you, that is not what I am suggesting the board do. What my suggestion would be is that the board stands with me and says, Winchester Public Schools is proud of our reading program, proud of our teachers that are teaching the reading program, and want to continue down this path and support going through a waiver process. So over the course of the past 5 years, from fiscal year 18 to this year, currently, we have received, I'll just start with 2018. And this is just dealing with reading, guys. This does not deal with other types of professional development. This is just literacy-based support. In fiscal year 18, we used $83,000 of our alliance money supported by the state, $172,000 in 19, $200,000 in 20, $200,000 in 21, and $200,000 in 22 to support reading. So, I mean, if you just look at the ballpark figure of what that is, you're over $750,000 in those buckets in 5 years out of Alliance, which again was funded by the state, approved by the state, and pushed in saying what you're doing is working. If you look at Commissioners Network, I'm going to go year by year by year, and then I'm going to talk to you about what the total cost of this is over the course of 5 years. So in 2018, in Commissioners Network, there was $443,000 invested into reading. In 2019, there was $449,000 invested. In fiscal year 20, between personnel, PD, curriculum, supplies, and software associated, $1.8 million in Commissioners Network funding. So to total this out, the state has invested in this district, in our reading program, in the selection and growth of our reading program, $3.6 million. Now, all of a sudden, because legislators came in and said, this is not good practice, you have to pick one of these 5 other reading programs. So what does that mean for a district? That means new materials, new programming, new training, new resources, learning supports. You know, it's taken us 5 years to feel like we're in a place right now where we really can strongly move forward and say that like we've got our feet under us. Could you imagine going back to square one as an educator right now and have to start this work all over again? Could you imagine the disheartenment of our teachers that would have to start over and saying all the work and effort that we've put into curriculum writing, professional development, and supporting our students with these programs was for naught? The success you've seen hasn't mattered. So you're going to hear me voice my opinion strongly that I do not think legislative impact at the local level on our selective reading program, given the response we've had to our reading program, is needed for Winchester. If we were a district where we have not had positive response and we couldn't prove otherwise that we are doing well, I would say we have an opportunity to maybe look at this differently. But quite frankly, at this moment, I don't see an opportunity that Winchester needs to go in a different direction. I believe that we are in the right direction right now.
Who benefits from this legislation?
5 monopolized companies.
We'll probably have people working with the legislators to get this passed.
I don't know that to be the case, but I know that 5 selected companies will benefit from this.
What is the center for throughout that day?
Yes, so they created this center, and those are the individuals that selected. So we had to submit paperwork that said, this is your reading program. These are the components of your reading program. Those individuals took a rubric that they developed from the Center of Literacy, and they graded your reading program and said you either got approved or you didn't get approved. I got a letter, which I included in your packet here, that says, and I'll just kind of highlight it. thank you for submitting your reading curricula program during the open review period for Connecticut SDE. The review process to evaluate curriculum program by the Reading Corps, created by the Connecticut State Department of Education. So right now, this letter is to inform you that your curricula / program you submitted was not selected through the Reading Corps process as one of the approved Connecticut pre-K to grade 3 core comprehensive reading curriculum programs. So then, you later on get the email, the letter from that you see in there from CAPS, which is Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, saying, we are strongly against this. This is not the way to do business with us. These are the reasons why, so much of what you heard me say is what my colleagues are saying also, like as Alliance and Commissioners Network districts alone, like the state told us what we should be doing. They've been the one approving our plans, approving our district improvement plans. So, legislation came through, changed course, and now all of a sudden we have to go back to square one. So,
So they based it off of their own research as to what they think the top programs rather than what the scores are, how they've improved. They're not looking
at no point were our scores and our current performance any part of this discussion. So just to give you an example, you look at the Gold Coast, like your Fairfield County schools, less than 1 in 10 school districts out of 65 school districts that participated are using these curriculums. So you look at, and I'm just going to say Gold Coast School District, it's a level A school, high performing, high socioeconomic level, like really just kind of up there. Someone to shoot to be like. If they're not using one of these 5 and they don't get approved on the waiver, they have to change their reading program.
So can you, the rubric, did you see the rubric?
Nobody has seen the rubric.
Oh, so you don't even know.
No.
You know that?
I don't know the answer to that, but I have not seen it.
So I know there's a recommend, they're working on a recommended for pre-K to 8.
For social studies, there's working on model curriculum, not under here.
So how does this differ from model curriculum?
So there's a difference between programs and curricula. So when you look at this, these are reading programs that will guide the instruction within the classroom. So then you have to take these reading programs and you have to make curriculum out of them, your lessons, your units, your assessments, all that kind of stuff. So it's really going back to the drawing board, to be able to move these forward.
So, but in this model program, it's not a requirement, but it's just saying, hey, this is our ideas, right? The model
No,
is required.
if we don't get the waiver approved, you will be required to select one of the 5
No, I
programs.
understand that. I'm just wondering, how does that fit in with the whole thing that they're trying to create? So the model program is not a requirement.
The model program is completely separate from this.
Right, okay, well, so is this going to be, this reading thing, is this going to continue up then for 6 and,
Not that I'm aware of at this moment. The legislation only addressed pre-K to age 3,
other
To grade 3, excuse me.
subjects, other grades?
just
that are
reading, right?
Just reading at this
Yeah.
level. And if they require us to change, they give us a change.
No, it's an unfunded mandate.
So is it free? Is it?
So here's the other beauty about the legislation. So I looked and there's no written consequence as to what happens if you don't go along with it. So, for me, there's no written consequence in there. There's no, I'm going to hold your funding. There's no, none of that. It's not a funded mandate.
Have you heard of anybody getting it?
We're not ready to, they're not accepting waivers yet. They just sent us out this letter that said we didn't make it yet. So we have not seen any waivers to date.
So this is the first time.
And what we asked, I can read to you if you want me to humor you. Oh, well, and that's not all of them. These are just the alliance districts that got together and say oh, no. That's just the alliance. That doesn't count all the other districts that are subject to this in the state of Connecticut. Well, well, and I think everybody's gonna be in a real pickle. You know, you look at just a small district like Winchester, it's taken us, you look at our numbers, $3.6 million over the course of 5 years to get our reading program where it is right now. Now, mind you, those are K-6 numbers. We're only talking about K-3, but that's a lot of money. You know?
Any kind of representation of K-6 curriculums and like estimated cost or transition or
Right.
anything, so you're just looking at me from along, you don't even.
Yeah,
And if we request a waiver, like one second, they actually gonna.
we don't know yet.
What was the rationale for passing this legislation?
I can't answer that.
I think
because it was
Doug
done
doesn't know on that.
There's a lobbyist.
Didn't they get thrown in that Christmas tree
It
one?
it got thrown in at the 19th hour and it got passed late in the night during a session, and that's where it happened.
All right, so I would like to make a motion, in order to support our, teaching staff and our current curriculum, we apply for a waiver.
That motion?
Any discussion on that?
Can I just ask, how many of these? You guys would like to-
Barb, you really can speak more intelligently. You know, Barb's a Lucy trained individual, so
What other districts, and what do you like about this? So first and foremost, there's many good policies based on student choice. It is research. There's years and years and years of research to support this style of curriculum in which the students are level based on a writing record and they are attached to tests. So there's very little research to support that a student is going to advance their learning when they're reading above their frustration level or actual frustration level. They're going to get frustrated several just after. So curriculum, allows them to read at a pace and a text that's challenging enough for them, but also based on their choice, so that the units of study are designed so that the students have time to read and choose books. They can read a series and get interested and really just develop stamina and increase. And at this stage, book club conversation, discourse, higher level of connection process, research and so it's deep and it's complex and it's engaging for kids. At the younger grades, Lucy did say that there's a gap in this. Need to form a foundation part of reading and like coding work. There's always been history thought in literacy where you teach the science of reading or you teach kids to be memorizing things, like listening to sort of that way develop stamina and a lot. And this is a reading more scientific words and science so it's a combination of both. At the younger grades, we do more chronological work.
so we're using a program called Foundations. And that is our kind of phonics program, if you will. So that way, that gap that does exist there, we've worked to be able to select a program that fills it. We've also taken a good portion of the funding and worked with Ed Advance to build our literacy units and lessons to expand beyond, the basic program that Lucy runs and make sure that we're really honing in on those skills that our students here in Winchester need, that we're able to identify. So that work has been done.
The K-3.
In partnership with the Foundations program, absolutely.
Oh, that's good. That's a. Read on a basal reader.
learn to connect to text and love reading. It's very low. It's not, I don't know a lot about public text. There's very little research. It's very concerning to me that it's throwing out some programs that one size fits all and that's not the way it works. So how many books you have in a library? You can't have enough books. And so to give one text to a whole class, it's going to be
I look inside of our classrooms right now, Barb, and I walked into her office, I think it was Thursday or Friday, and I had just done a walkthrough of just quick being in all the classrooms, just peeking in. And I just walked back in and I'm like, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. Like, they're absolutely engaged. Like, the kids are talking about literacy, and it's not like, this wasn't a walkthrough, this wasn't planned, this was just me going in. Barb does it all the time too, just walking in and just checking how things are going in the classrooms. And it's just absolutely wonderful to see how engaged they are, like, and they're talking and they've got books that are interesting to them, and like, to take that away from them, I just don't have the heart to do that. Like, it's just not good practice.
And listen, I'm advanced certified RDO, so I know the science behind reading, right? So we know what kids need. We understand the kids need phonics. We know kids that need the umbrella, all 5 areas of reading, right? But not every single kid's gonna need that, right? So the kids that do need that higher level, we have those interventions in place for those kids, right? And so we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 intervention in place for those kiddos. So we have that strong curriculum that we have in place for kiddos that's there. And then when kids need that higher level, we have those higher levels, right? So they're getting a double dose of everything. Again, with having that knowledge in the base that we have, yes, they need that, but kids also need to learn discourse. Kids need to be connected, right? We're teaching science standards, we're teaching social studies standards now. If we can teach kids phonics, that's great, but they need to have higher level thinking skills when they get to higher level. But we need to be living that world as well too. We have all those things. To just say that we're teaching one program of phonics, it does a disservice to our students. It can't be that one size fits all. Excuse me? I'm advanced certified already. Yes.
Motion.
Well, and it's a state. Yeah. Nice way. I'm saying a little differently.
Yeah, do you want to hear, I know it's in your packet, but I did receive an email back from the letter that the CAPS Alliance group sent. I can read it from the, yes, I can read it from the commissioner if you're wanting me to. We're a very forward group. So we've been, it's such a hot button right now, and it's just detrimental because you think about the financial impact and what that does. We have low morale in education right now just because of the times we're in. To further exacerbate this right now is just unconscionable at this point.
What was it that they threw in last minute too, that threw all the schools up? Something we say or.
Oh, it was the 30-minute lunch,
30-minute
mandatory
lunch.
30-minute lunch, yes.
It was like last minute, it was all on the schedule, but,
Yeah.
you know, how does that change the salary of the teachers? And like, how does it change the buses? And it's like, just here you go, and it's like.
So we have a motion on the floor. I think we have a second on the floor.
Yeah, we're gonna, I was reading the letter and I interrupted, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is in response to.
Okay, the letter. So it's addressed back to the recipients on there. I appreciate your communication on behalf of the group here regarding the K-3 approved reading curriculums pursuant to the legislation in the June special session, Public Act 21-2. I'm aware of and do understand the concerns you raise. I have received similar concerns expressed by leaders in other area groups, as well as from Ms. Rabinowitz, who heads CAPS. Note your communication referenced and linked to the raised bill. However, the public act that was signed into law with all relevant details is linked to your reference below. An act concerning provisions related to revenue and other items to implement at the state budget for the biennium ending in June 30, 2023. In section 394, the public act states, and it's new, effective July 1, 2021, for the school year commencing July 21, 2023. Each school year thereafter, each local and regional Board of Education shall implement a reading curriculum model or program for grades pre-kindergarten to grade 3 inclusive that has been reviewed and recommended pursuant to section 395 of this act. To reference section 395, the above states, no later than July 1 of 2022, the Director for Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success, in consultation with the Reading Leadership Implementation Council established pursuant to section 402 of this act, shall review and approve at least 5 reading curriculum models or programs to be implemented by local and regional boards of education according to the unique needs of each school district in accordance with the provisions of section 394 of this act. Such reading curriculum models or programs shall be 1, evidence-based and scientifically based, 2, focused on competency in the following areas of oral language, phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, rapid naming or letter name fluency, and reading comprehension. I share the specific language of the law to reiterate to your point that the mandates are legislative and to also explain that the CSDE does not have the legal authority to pause the process of approving and mandating K-3 reading programs for Connecticut school districts. The relief/solution you are recommending can only be achieved with a legislative change. I welcome further discussion from this group of leadership so we can clearly address these and other requirements of the Public Act as we prepare for the upcoming legislative session. I have copied key SDU staffers who will follow up to facilitate a meeting. We always welcome the opportunity to work collaboratively in service of each and every student we serve. Commissioner of Education.
Two things I have to ask.
Yes,
Would we have to apply for a waiver on an annual basis?
I don't know the answer to that.
Secondly, I was looking up HB 6620. It seems to reference pre-kindergarten grade 5.
I'll have to look it up.
I'm just looking at it right now. Also, there seems to be a section here that demonstrated financial hardship for the district that we provided an extension on implementation of the program. So maybe we should go with a two-pronged approach, waiver and financial hardship.
I think it's waiver. We've invested our finances.
Yeah.
I think we have to stand strong on this one because if it's this particular, if they have come over and reached in and grabbed literacy, who's to say what the next subject area that is reached in and grabbed? There's no consequence in the legislation to not implement.
For now.
For now.
In their response about financial, like it was earlier. Not fortunate, and I almost got the sense of it. There's just like the funding, yeah, did you hear that?
Yeah.
It was almost like
We have not gotten that gist in any capacity that there would be any financial support for this. It did say, I share the specific language of the law to reiterate your point that the mandates are legislative. I don't know if maybe that's where you picked it up. No. So.
I move the motion. I move the question.
I would like to, just, I'm trying to write it out, and like I said before, in order to support the teachers, students, and the independence of our curriculum to our school, our district. I move that we, apply for a waiver.
Maybe continue to use a program that works, right? I mean, our scores are showing that. Instead of using it to work. So why change it?
Can I make a friendly amendment to that?
Yes, sir.
In addition, I would recommend that I, as chair, draft a letter to our state representative, Jake Pace, urging him to work on repealing this legislation. And I would certainly have the bill prior to signing it, but since this is a legislative initiative that we should respond to. I love it. So we have a motion, I make an amendment. Is there a second to the amended motion? Okay, for Kristen, all in favor? It appears to be unanimous. Thank you all for that discussion.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
If I get any more good letters that are, I'll send them out to you.
That was really well. Yeah.
Like we're
And it's
like over.
Good adjectives in there.
Okay, we are up to item 11, board action items.
All right, we have hired Amy Stone as a paraprofessional. We have also hired Madison Sipperly as a paraprofessional. Jessica Fay as a paraprofessional. That's it for new hires.
And these are just for information purposes
Yes.
only. We don't need to approve those, so we can move on to year-end fiscal needs
Okay.
grant.
Funding source for Amy Stone? And also Jessica.
Most of the time I can tell you that those are general budget, but I'm gonna refer to Nancy to make sure that are all the paras that were hired out of general budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Fiscal needs grant.
Yes, so I just want to preface, we have some grant submission forms for you tonight. You know that we try to be as financially responsible as we possibly can. So we seek out funding outside of the state, local, and federal sources to be able to make sure that our program is innovative and kids can benefit from that. So we have several grants before you tonight that we are applying for. The first of which is the year-end critical needs grant for winter wear. So important that our kids can go outside and play in the snow when it comes, and have proper boots, hats, gloves, snow pants. So we asked for a $1,300 grant from the Northwest Community Foundation to make sure that our kids can go out and properly play. So, no, it's always our social worker that applies, so, yep, because the account is associated with me. Yes. Yep.
Don't want anything kicked back or anything.
So I asked for approval for the board to support us applying for the critical needs fund for $1,300.
So we'll-
All in favor?
All right.
Was this unanimous? Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but, in the system, I think you can find this one. What are the things is, do we do this on the-
So we do the critical needs one on an annual basis. They also were a 50% supporter in our Pearson Playground project. So we applied for the Draper funds for that particular project. And we just applied, that you approved last month, for the grant for the Inchy Perform vending machine grant to be able to apply for a grant for Inchy. So we're waiting to hear back on we get Inchy or not. The next grant submission is the NASA Connecticut Space Grant Consortium. Rachel's applying for this. It is in the amount of $1,500, and it is to support our talented and gifted students, and being able to begin the programs around drones and participating in a STEM drone competition in the state. So you see a crazy drone flying over Pearson, it'll be our kids. But again, like these are the types of innovative programs that we want to be able to support with the kids, but being able to find grants to support them helps us to further our programs without having to impact our local budget.
Well, yeah, we also have to put in a drone policy. I'm not sure if that's.
Yeah, we'll have to look into all of
Would
that.
Rachel have to have one of those pilot certificates?
No, it depends on how high up you're flying, but she does have one anyway. Yes. So I'd like to put a motion on the floor for approval.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next grant is Nancy's grant, and it's the supply chain assistance grant for school meals, and that's through the USDA. And this is for fiscal year 23 and 24. And it's again associated with food service in the amount of $14,271.13. And this is funds to be able to offset increased costs for food. So USDA will grant through this money to offset our costs.
Is there a number? Do you have a percentage of what?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
You don't need to look. Is there a percentage of what the food increase has been for this year? Cost?
So, yeah, we'll see how it actually rolls in.
So I'd like to ask the board for the support for the application of the supply chain assistance for school meals.
Cheryl.
Who was
made a
that, Cheryl?
motion. Second. Chris, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're on the last leg on this, new business discussion and possible action. First item is opioid antagonist in schools.
So I put in your paper on page 44 and 45 information and kind of background on this policy. So as of July 1, pre-July 1, there has been obviously an opioid epidemic, across our state and country. Last spring, actually, where I used to be an assistant principal, there was a child in Hartford that died due to an opioid overdose at his school. Say what?
Expired.
We're not there yet.
Congratulations.
No, that's at the end.
I apologize.
Jumping the gun.
I'm going down the wrong side, sorry.
He's trying to expedite
No,
this meeting.
sorry.
So, the other thing that's more recent, obviously, is that, you may or may not have heard of, how fentanyl is being packaged now to look like children's candy. And you know that children love candy. And if it looks like a Skittle, we're going to eat a Skittle, So July 1, the legislator did put a new law that allows schools to be able to have an opioid antagonist in the school building as a standing medical order. So I wanted to put this before the board before taking it through policy, because there's several layers of policies that have to be changed. There's layers of training that have to happen to make sure that the board was or was not on board with moving this process forward. So kind of the long and the short of it is that there's, again, layers to this. Start with training. We have to have a medical policy. We have to update our standing orders with our medical physician to include an opioid antagonist. We would have to have it housed here like we do in our locked cabinet for medical situations. And I think, one of the things that is kind of controversial, but not, is there is an option for parents to opt out. So we have standing medical orders for Tylenol. You can opt out of us not giving your child Tylenol. We have standing medical orders for like an EpiPen in case of your kid getting stung and you find out, oh my God, they're allergic to a bee. Well, if you have the opt-out sign, we can't give your kid the EpiPen. If you have an opt-out signed for an opioid and your child has experienced an overdose and you sign the opt-out, we cannot, antagonist, thank you. We cannot administer without parent permission. So I don't want anybody to think that, we just give kids meds without their permission from parents. That's not the case. So what I'm asking is if there's any discussion, I'm happy to answer the questions that I can answer. If not, I would ask that the board authorize the superintendent to move forward with the process to allow an opioid antagonist to become a standing order as part of our medical administration policy. And then I would take that to the policy committee under Cheryl's direction to further that work.
Would it use a specific school?
It would be at all schools, yes, because the idea behind this would not just be for students. We know that sometimes adults, whether they're a staff member or a family member of a child, may suffer from a situation such as this.
Well, we have on paragraph 2, there's no teacher as a qualified school employee, but paraprofessional included.
Check my. I'm sorry, I left it out. That was my fault. A qualified employee is a principal, teacher, licensed athletic coach, trainer, school paraprofessional, licensed physical or occupational therapist. So I apologize. I left that out.
How many people would you select to do this?
Say that again.
How many people would you select? Because it could be more than one, right? 12 or 20.
I probably have at least 5 per building because the law, if you do this, one of those 5 people have to be on site at all times. So you'd want to have at least enough that, if the 3 of us got the flu, at least 2 of them are still in the building.
So I think it's.
Yeah, and I think absolutely. And I think time is of the essence if God forbid you are faced with a situation like this. We can give an EpiPen to a child instead of obviously calling the first responders, but sometimes our ambulance service is backed up or a first responder is backed up. It's taken the other day, we had a student with a seizure and it was a 32-minute response to get to us. So, that's a long time for us to be waiting for something that could potentially be a life-saving situation for someone.
Melanie, what about negative reactions you might have to Narcan? Like Tylenol might have some, but a Narcan might have unexpected.
So
Covered.
I'm not an expert in any capacity, but what I've read, and I forget what the language is, but what I've read on this situation, if there's no
There's no
contraindications, thank you.
And the only risk is, and this is coming from another, not me, but another nurse, is if there's an allergy to the item that's inside, something that's in the Narcan itself. Other than that, it's not like it's a seizure or Parkinson's, anything like that. There's no contraindication for that. But you could always have an allergy or something.
It's not difficult to administer now. It's like
nasal spray.
we have it at the lounge.
Yeah.
just in case.
So it's kind of like with diabetes and other things. If you give it and it wasn't needed, you're okay. Nothing's gonna change. But if you don't give it, you could love it. And the thing that concerns me the most, this is built with everyone, is like the kids, candy. What if one kid had a reaction and is out with maybe 5 kids? They'll know right away there was a problem. So it's, or if the kids around you could say, oh my God, no, give them candy to eat. You didn't have it, but you get
You can
loosened
just
off.
touch that, can't you?
Yeah.
Scary.
You can absorb it. Yeah.
Depends on the quality of it, because if you use fentanyl patches for pain relief, so that's the opposite, that's touching. Depends on what it is. Really, that whole thing has been exaggerated tremendously. We don't have that. We don't have that. It's still. Up here. A lot of factors.
So there's some backward thinking to that. If you have to opt out, that means, so we would want this opportunity for as many children, because God forbid that there is an emergency. Last thing you want to do is have to sit here and watch someone like not be well. So sometimes with an opt out, we get less parents to opt out because they have to write a letter informing us why and what have you. Sometimes if we do an opt in, then it takes a while for us to get compliance, to get all of you to return your slips. So If we put the policy out there and say, please let us know in writing if, you're opting your child out of this situation, then that puts the onus on the family to say, no, I don't want that service, rather than if Jeanette doesn't turn her paper in, then I have to track Jeanette down, get this paper. It's much easier process.
I would suggest that these be pictures of and the policy. In office, I would make a motion to place this proposed policy onto the policy.
So that was Cheryl. Sandra?
I thought they did it actually.
Is that a vote on the-
Yeah. You know, it says like something with ones we can give your student or whatever. Oh, she's got a lot of them, didn't start from her. And so then she had to go back and contact all the students. Are you really sure you don't? And then when she explained what it was, then they started. So it's kind of like a. So, yeah, I'm sure some of them came back and said they opted out.
Quite frankly, if a parent did opt out and that child became involved in a situation, I would make every last effort to get that parent on the phone and be like, is that your directive to me right now at this moment? We would make every effort to make that happen.
The Cheryl has made a motion that this be moved to the policy committee for consideration. Is there a second to that one?
Yeah.
Second, Sandra. All in favor of that? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl, you want to take it from here?
Yep, so the first policy we're looking at, and this is. Right, I know.
It's 46.
No, that's not my question. Then you want to make it first. First read or second?
First.
Okay. That's right, we don't have any seconds. Okay, so it's now lapses on this basically modifies policy what we want to do. We asked for, with the town, whenever there's funds available, left over, and this includes a memorandum of agreement for that.
One question on that policy. It says that the board of selectmen will be responsible for the accounting of the funds in accordance with GSJS. Are we doing our own accounting on this, Nancy, as well? I mean, do we rely on Anne Marie to tell us what the balance in the non-lapsing fund is? It's just take that to the bank. Okay, that's pretty straightforward.
Can I ask about, on the memorandum, onto number 2? The funds deposited in said account shall be and are subject to the additional appropriation process established pursuant to the charter. My misunderstanding, that sounds like there's additional processes versus I thought we were going to, I thought this was going to say that basically, we could, as needed, go into that without having to get BOS permission.
It's free. So this number 2 deals with us going to the board of selectmen and saying, hey, we'd like to put our year-end funds into, once it is in that fund, the 2% non-lapsing, then it is under board of ed jurisdiction, but the town has 2 options at that time. They can either give it to us, they can give it part of us, or they can just keep it all before it gets kicked back to us as part of the non-lapsing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? A motion to move it to second read. I make a motion to move 3171.1 to second read. So second that, any more discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? So the next policy is 6140, and this is the instruction curriculum. We had pretty extensive discussion about this here in the policy committee. This is a including but not limited curriculum. Any questions regarding this?
Yes, Jennifer? Students that are enrolled. in
Got it. Thank you.
And
But what is that regarding students that are enrolled?
So it basically says students that are enrolled in Winchester Public Schools and or the Winchester Public Schools designated high school, meaning the Gilbert School. They basically have to experience this under state statute.
Yeah, the sentence doesn't say that. Yeah, that's what I'm
Right now.
saying.
I'll
Yeah,
make English statement.
is it like an RE or is it like?
I think it would be, yeah, or it policy applies to, yeah. Right.
It actually can just combine the second and the first sentence together.
Right, comma.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll fix that.
I have a question about paragraph 4. Health and safety one.
Yeah.
Yep. So for appropriate instruction, like this is for, this is for all grades through.
Or
And, but the instruction is based on, remember, we had this discussion. today.
No, I know.
It's based on what is appropriate age appropriate. Right. So that's
So,
thank you.
who is?
So health PE teacher, for instance, having been a health teacher, Barb and I co-teach the developmental fifth grade conversation about puberty. We have the PE teacher, social workers. When you get up into middle school, high school, though, they're content-driven teachers that are instructing those. It might be your health teacher, could be a counselor, could be that's a health teacher conversation. Yeah, that's a health teacher. So you look at like physical and mental health, emotional, that might be a guidance counselor that addresses that at some point, through instruction. So, yeah. No, it would be a health teacher. Absolutely. And that's another one of those opt-out situations. You don't have to have your child participate in that conversation.
You just have to have the.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to introduce policy 6140 in second reading.
Have a second? Jeff? All in favor? Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you. I'm sorry. Looked over, so your hand up.
Opposed? Opposed?
So what is that? 8-1?
8-1. The other one was 9-0.
So the next policy is 4112.1, and this is personnel certified, non-certified. This policy basically sets forth what can and cannot do in trying to select a certified and non-certified teacher. Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, it basically says that if it's an administrative position, then I bring that administrative position to the board for approval. If it's a non-administrative position, then you give me the jurisdiction to be able to hire. I just have to notify you like I do on a monthly basis of what our changes are.
This is basically what we do.
Correct, it is our practice.
Any questions? A motion to second reading?
I make a motion to move 4112.1 to second reading.
Second, Jeanette. Sorry, her hand went up. All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. We're doing policy 4218.11. This is the personal certified, non-certified. This is the act, part of the act of protecting hairstyles. This is similar to a policy we had recently. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, on the grievance form, is this required wording or can it be adjusted?
To what extent you can have it adjusted?
First line, they got leave they,
Okay,
they have the. Is it the end of it?
that's correct. That would be inappropriate, especially when it does specify a gender identity. So with that amendment, any further questions?
No, but we could amend it. Then I can cover all the bases.
Well, just name on a whole basis of them, otherwise you can. So, so with the, so with the proposed amendment, do we have a motion to move it to first read? Second read, so.
I need clarity on what the motion is though with the amendment.
So amendment on grievance form would take the first sentence, take that, where it says, who feels that she has been discriminated against, and say feels that they have been discriminated. Something like that, it's not substantive, it's more matter of appropriate. Okay.
We could vote it back if you want to choose to vote it back to the
Yeah.
policy committee.
That can be a motion instead of a motion to second read. We've done that before. We'll consider that.
I make a motion to move 4218.11, second read,
Do I have a second?
as amended.
And Kristen has a second. All in favor as amended? So that is 7 in favor. Do I, any opposition or opposed? Anyone opposed to the motion? Anyone abstaining from the motion? One abstention? Sandra, did you vote? I did. What did you vote?
I voted yes.
Okay, sorry, so it was 8 or 0-1.
801.
All right.
Barb, you good back there? Are you hearing us? Okay.
So refer to policy number 6163.11. Next policy, this has to do with gifts of library materials. This has to do with when people want to donate a gift of books, magazines, in the manner which is going to be evaluated for acceptance into the collection. Have any questions regarding this?
I move that we read that to the second read.
Motion, do I have a second? Sandra, second. All in favor? It's unanimous. Next policy is 5141.1.3, sub A. And this has to do with students' health assessment and immunization. This is a mandated policy. Any questions? Do I have a motion to move it to first read or motion? Second read, I'm sorry.
No, Kristen?
Yep.
Farah?
Second. Any further discussion?
I will just be voting no on this in regards to the fact that it requires an influenza for a pre-K. I believe that is too young. I understand that. I was still voting.
Okay. So, all right, well, let's do the vote. All in favor of moving the second read? Do we have a number? Do we have hands? We have one. W voting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? 2, okay.
Religious being taken away from parents. That should be on.
Fortunately, it's statutory, so we can't.
I understand.
What was it about?
For now.
662, that's only
But
8.
that's
No,
not-
no, it's not 6. So,
7,
7.
7, 7,
Okay,
7.
this did come with a regulation. And I think.
Oh, the bottom.
No, no, regulation.
Okay, they're in bus
Bus,
battles.
bus, bus, bus.
Business.
5145.
Yeah.
In there.
Oh, I see it, I'm sorry, yep. All right, so this is policy 5145, this is behavior on buses, we went through and made this our own. Has to do with how, the district, we're gonna handle issues, of behavioral behavior on the buses. Any questions? Do I have a motion to move it to second read? Or a motion on
I make a motion to move 5145 to second reading.
Tara, second. Any further discussion?
Just,
Sarah had
This
voted.
is one of the ones you missed that one.
I was-
did you have a comment?
Oh,
Under E, discipline may be modified for good and sufficient use. Those are kind of subjective terms.
Right, and it's the modification, we're looking at basically the same for ban reduction year automatically, we tried to modify to be more appreciative of maybe this puts on parents and families, but there's also, we have to look at what the behavior is. That's kind of what we're looking at. The behavior is extreme. We want to have the freedom to
Just not give a
Just-
warning, because it's your
yes.
first time. So for instance, if there was a fight on the bus and kids were punching one another, like the first consequence according to policy would be a warning. You're not gonna get a warning for fighting and punching on the bus. So the letter E gives us the ability to say, you are suspended from the bus or suspended from school because of your egregious behavior.
So who makes that call?
Only the administrator of the school.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving to second reading? Unanimous. Now I'm done.
Okay. So we have an item, the Gilbert School Corporation seat. And past practice has been based upon interpretation of the Board of Ed bylaw, which states somewhat ambiguously that the chair shall nominate a member to the TGS board. And then it mentions something about an election, which Cheryl and I have kind of gone round and round about this. Does that imply the election of a board member to this board or the election of somebody to the TGS board subsequent to a nomination from the chair? And so I'd like to bring this up at the start because I recommended to Cheryl, did you get my email for the language on that?
No, I
Okay.
I think
So,
the public sent it to the email or something. I have that, but I haven't.
you only have peppermint?
That's the only one I have access to. I was never given access to. The setup, and no one ever told me to set up, and things get sent
Okay,
there.
that's why you didn't get it. Okay.
That's it.
All right, so I'd like to start off by saying that I believe that the entire board should have the opportunity to nominate somebody. We got a couple of reasons. The first being that, well, let's start from the beginning. Ideally, there would be 4 members on this board who would be able and willing to serve on the TPS board. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. People are other commitments, other obligations. So we have vacancies that occur. In the event that we do not have 4 members of this board who are able and willing to serve on TPS, I think it's important that we cast as wide a net as we can to get people from the community engaged into the Gilbert School Board. And I think that relying on the chair, myself, particularly when you're an introvert like me, you're not going to necessarily know a lot of people who may or may not be interested in serving on that board. So I think I would like to see more opportunities for people on this board to promote or propose other members to TBS for that slot. I also think that it would be important that the rest of the board sign on to that, and that we do codify the idea that whoever is nominated be elected by this board. So if it is a function of this board, not the chair, to put somebody on the TBS board, I think it's important because it's a big seat. It's a very important issue to me, and I think to the rest of you as well, that we are well represented either by ourselves or by a member of the community. So to start with, I'd like to propose that the policy committee visit that issue and possibly amend the bylaws to reflect something similar to what I proposed.
After the motion on the table to move that issue to policy, I would ask that we expedite that.
Well,
That it go through 16 second fee.
well,
Take a while.
correct. So I am willing at this point to nominate somebody if the board is okay with that. And you can either go through an election process or you can just put like my appointment.
Just point of order, the process we've had in the past has been, you suggested someone, we've discussed it and kind of just, it wasn't really an election, it
It
was
never
more,
has been.
we just, yeah, that sounds good. kind of thing,
Right.
you know?
Correct.
That's right.
But that's in the past practice. For
Right.
example, when you put on a community member instead of a board member, it was, we chose this person and it was like, okay, good.
Yeah.
That's my recollection of how that went.
Correct.
Good?
Yes.
That's that's been past practice.
Yes.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Sure.
so you can nominate someone for the, town that's not on the board. When does that person turn over?
That's a good question. And I think that would have to be addressed in the bylaws. Because the way our bylaws are currently read, if a member of the Board of Ed serves on TGS, their term expires with their elected chair.
So we say the term of the elected, a person who,
If somebody's from the community, they're not an elected person, so I would suggest that at the next election, everything be revisited, the next town election.
But in the meantime, if you want to propose someone for.
In the
secretary,
meantime, Mandy Perez has expressed an interest in serving on the TGS board, and I will nominate her to that position.
And I will recuse myself.
Okay. Well, you don't have-
You know,
there's no vote.
Oh,
There's no vote, I
Yes,
mean,
ma'am.
I'm just basically saying that.
I would, agree, just for the record, I think that appointment, Andy's not, you know, her professional experience is tremendous. She's been an educator, she's been an administrator, she knows this town inside and out. She cares about the kids in this town. So, I mean, I think that would be a wonderful addition to the board. Yeah. Vast experience with this town, with as an administrator and educator. Just, I can't think of anyone qualified. So maybe
I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that Candy has a specific opinion about the school. And I do, Melanie and I spent over an hour with her last week discussing potential of her serving on the school board. And we both stressed to her that although we understand her concerns and reservations about the structure of the way TGS is governed and about the budgetary implications of their ability to unilaterally set the budget, that both Melanie and I were of the strong belief that her educational background from Region 7 would be the strength that we're looking for her to bring to the table, because we believe TGS needs a lot of support in improving test scores and performance of our students. So that was the crux of the conversation that we had. Does that mean Candy's never gonna, that she's gonna climb on board for every TGS project? Probably not, but I do believe that she can do something. And there's always the Lyndon Johnson. Probably knows. You don't need to say that to each other. So, that being said, we can move on to the last item on new business, and that is the Aspire contract. You want to talk to us about that?
Yeah, so, you know that we're having a really difficult time, hiring paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals are critical to keeping kids in district and not placing them out of district when they're displaying behaviors that are not typical of their peers or have emotional needs that are beyond the regular school setting. So Seamus's office has come up with a creative way to be able to try to keep as many of these kiddos in district as possible while building the skill set of our staff that we have to be able to handle some students that are displaying some behaviors that might not be appropriate. So there's a company called Aspire, and they deal with training and working directly with students, one-on-one, one student at a time for a given period of time to help them achieve school success, be that academically, but in most cases, it's social emotional behavior regulation. So what we're proposing, a good portion of this is grant funded. So I'm only asking, so 43,000, Nancy, do you have those numbers specific?
Yes, I do. So $43,373 will come from the ARP IDEA grant. $6,733.90 will come from the ESSER II special will come from the IDEA 611 carryover grant for a total of $56,527.92. I am estimating, because we're starting after the school year has started, that will come in around $63,000 to $65,000 with this commitment, which would mean that it would be less than $10,000 for us to fund out of general budget. And I think we can do that with the some of the salary money that we're not using because we can't find Paris.
So I just want to put this in the context of how this could potentially, I know that amount of money, $60-some thousand is a lot of money. When you think about that for a contract, when we have to, unfortunately, out of district place a student, you're really looking at a minimum of $100,000 per child because you're paying for transportation and you're paying for tuition, and that's on the low end of things. So, you know, your average out of district placement cost is usually between $120,000 and $150,000, give or take. So the fact that we would be using this contract for 6 to 8 week stints, being able to support multiple students and keep them in district, potentially is saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars, because in some instances, we would need to potentially out of district place some of these children that are not regulated at this moment.
So I don't know what a fire is, so is this people that are coming into school as that point?
They're a contractor, yes. And
Parents or it's something.
yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about what their service would include. So their service would include one full-time trained behavior technician, support therapist, a BCBA, which is a behavior consultant that would support 6 hours per week. They would write functional behavior assessments, so plans and other assessments to support children. They would attend all of the children's PPTs, so their special education meetings. They would provide reports for annuals and triennials. Again, that's special education meetings. They would train and consult with our certified staff to be able to, again, roll over those skills. They would provide day-to-day data collection regarding improvement or failure to improve. They would provide assistance with IEP development for identified students. They would progress monitor and report out. They would be in the classroom to provide positive behavior supports. They would consult with the school team for further program development for each individual student. They would transition plan for the school team to take responsibility for the child's programming once behaviors are regulated and programs are in place. This would take 6 to 8 weeks for a cycle of intervention per student. Progress monitoring would determine the timeline for transitioning out and getting them back into the regular setting. And then there would be procedural integrity for implementation of student programming that would be set up in the district in order to build internal capacity of our staff. And the certified staff would be trained to evaluate the fidelity of the implementation. So if the plan says you're going to do X, Y, and Z, then we are provided as certified staff a checklist to say, this is what you should be saying, this is what they should be doing, this is what you should be hearing, to make sure that once they step out of the process, we're able to implement the process with fidelity. This would be really, right now, we're focusing on Hinsdale. We have some kiddos that have been part of the pandemic situation where they haven't largely been socialized, haven't been around classmates or peers. And we have some concerns regarding some of the behaviors that we're seeing that are self-dangerous and dangerous to others.
How many students do we work with?
I would say probably on average about 5 right now, give or take.
And the staffing that Aspire would provide for that amount of money would be sufficient for us?
Yes. So it's a support program. So the goal is to keep them in the classroom as much as possible with their like peers. There are appropriate times though where sometimes students have to have like a social skills group that might be out of the classroom or a one-on-one with a staff member for intervention purposes. But the goal is always to service and program as much as humanly possible in the inclusion setting. No, only a school administrator can discipline a student. It would be now to June 30th.
So it's 6 to 8 weeks for one student.
Yes.
to one student
At a time, yes.
So if we had five,
It's very intense, and when we're changing these types of behaviors that we're
How do you
changing,
decide which student goes first?
well, we have a whole data tracking system, and we're collecting data on students that we're having a difficult time managing in a safe way right now. So Seamus, the data is going to direct us to who the best student is to start with.
How are parents involved?
100%, they have to be involved in this process. So that's part of the PPT process. None of this can be done without the implementation of an individualized education plan. So that goes through this entire process. So parents have to be 100% on board. If they're not on board, we can't go through with this type of work.
so Melanie, they'll train one kid one-to-one for 6 to 8 weeks and then move to the next kid, 6 to 8 weeks, and the next kid.
That is the plan, because it's really difficult to do this type of work at this level with multiple children, because sometimes they set one another off and they feed off of one another. So this has to really be strategic, purposeful, and supported 100%.
But Aspire can't send in 5 adults, work simultaneously on 5.
We can't afford that, Nora.
So this is what the big time is up. So there's one adult.
It's, well, it's one adult plus the BCBA consultant plus our team that would be learning this process and training with them. So that way we can take over understanding. Plus, in the future, we'll be able to use that training so that we don't need this type of a service. We're growing capacity. Exactly. Exactly.
Just an additional layer to our program. So BCBA's are really hard to come by, as you guys well know. We talked about that in previous board meetings previously. They've been hard to come by for a lot of years. Aspire has been around for a long time. The IPPI used to be the program that was called prior to that. There's other districts where Aspire has a school right now where they have 17 BTs in one school district, a large school district. So 17 specific behavior therapists working in a district with 2.5 BCPAs, right? So to the total of something like $3.5 million that this district has put into this program, large district, right? But they've been able to keep those students in that programming, and they basically run an out-of-district program within their school district. Does that make sense to you guys? We'll never see something like that because we're not nearly the size of that district, but we have great programming. When they came in there and did direct observations with us, they were extremely impressed with our program. They said, we have everything that we need. We just need that extra layer of support to kind of get some of those outlier kids that we don't have the staffing for, to kind of grab one of those kids at a time and say, all right, we'll handle this kid for 6 to 8 weeks while you keep working on the programming of your kids. Let's not worry about that kid right now. We'll handle that kid. We'll get him back into class while you handle your kids that you're working really hard on. The kids that we can't handle right now, you keep focusing on your programmatic. We'll support your program, and we'll keep taking those kids as tiered intervention kids. So we won't have to get to that higher level of programming. And if we do need to get that high level of programming, we'll work collaboratively with you to provide you that support around that. And having that BCBA consult will just help our programming in general. That's kind of the idea. Say that again.
What's the track record for their success?
They had a really good track record. So like I said, I'm not going to mention the district that they're in, but the district that they're currently in with 17 PTs, I don't think that district will be racking out $3.5 million for 17 different BTs in that building if their track record wasn't that good, right? So I've had really good success with students that have been in their programming per se that we've had to send their students to. Their director is a former special education director that now oversees that programming. I trust her, have a good relationship with her. It's a pretty reasonable contract, I think, for 1 year for us to kind of take a look at to see if this is what our programming could benefit from. But with our staffing issues and with everything else that's going on, I really feel like this is an appropriate ask for the board. So I hope that you guys support it.
As Seamus said, I grilled the individual that came in to talk to us about success rates and, the type of programming that they would be supporting in the district. And just really went soup to nuts about like making sure that all their I's and T's were taken care of in terms of the process of supporting our kids in a way that have them ultimately be successful in the classroom.
I'm interested in the part that talks about training the staff.
Yeah.
How do you think that the staff will be able to do this by the end of the year?
Yeah,
So we
so-
don't have to pay Aspire again.
So that's our hope. So again, we have great staff, we have great programming, but it's all about the staff that we bring on, right? So if we bring on staff in the middle of the school year and we're trying to deal with kids that are in our program, right? It's hard to provide training at the same time when you're also trying to provide programming at the same time, right? So you have this additional person like a BCBA or a trainer that can be doing that twofold while you're still providing program for kids. It's a lot easier, right? So if you have that other person that can help you with the training, that's just going to better off the availability of our kids to be more successful, is going to help us. And again, remember that 6 to 8 weeks, we can't just say, all right, great, that kid's ready to go, pop them back into class or whatever that looks like. We need to have some type of contingency plan when those kids are ready to reintegrate back into classes full time. I need to make sure that staff is trained to go back and support those kids in the classroom, so we don't have the repeat of them going back to the classroom and then falling apart and coming back out of the classroom. Does that make sense? I don't want that kid after 6 weeks to then circle right back and have to be right back out again. Does that make sense? So that training component of really supporting those kids, that's the key component of it, and that's that support that we need. We still have our programming that's working great for us. These are grabbing those extra kids that instead of putting 5 kids all at the same time into one classroom, picture me putting 5 of you guys that all having the same behaviors in one class at one time and saying, good luck with 3 staff members. What do you think is going to happen? It's not going to work out too well. So this is kind of really kind of slowing it down and being able to pick and choose who our kiddos are based off the data that we have.
And these kids are 4 to 8 years old.
This is again, this is Renata, Renee, you can speak to it as well too, in the field as well too. I'm sure some of the other teachers on there. We're seeing younger and younger kids, especially our pandemic kids from kindergarten, first and second grade, really struggling with this type of behavior at this age level. These are our pandemic kids, and we're really starting to see the kids coming out of the pandemic, what it really did to them. Yeah, unfortunately.
Do they do workshops with parents to
Yeah.
help?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the components they have too. And actually, they're doing a separate grant that we wrote as well. Not even put this, they're doing PD for us tomorrow. Actually, they're coming and working with specific parents tomorrow and doing a separate PD that's not even related to what we're talking about today. That's not even related to this, and doing something like that. So again, we're already trying to target a whole different audience in regards to this. That's not even related to this. So they're not just one facet of the company. They're doing a whole different thing for me in another area. So.
Just have one other quick question. Are they training one staff person all the time? Within the same group?
We don't just train every staff member. We train specific staff members that can handle this. So we have staff members that work specifically in our program. So we have different types of programs. So we have pre-K paraprofessionals and then programmatic paraprofessionals. So those are the staff members that are going to get trained. And I want to say eight staff members. I want to say 8 or 9 paraprofessionals that are going to be getting trained in these variety of different areas. But they're all in different areas. Like there's 4 pre-K paras. There's like 4 hub paras. So there's a variety of different paras that can be trained in this area. They all kind of rotate.
I didn't know if there was any one these 5 staff.
No, we wouldn't be able to do that all at the same time. Yeah, no, we'll rotate specific people through.
Meredith.
And they have a small non-account as well.
So Melanie would like a motion to support.
It's
Aspire
re-
program.
Yep, and it's really only $8,000 out of the general budget. It's not, everything else is coming out of grant funding.
I'll make.
For sure.
Do we have a second? That was
Second.
Cheryl. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank
Who
you.
was the second? I'm sorry. Jeanette?
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Thank
And
you
that
all.
was unanimous.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Dory would like to discuss.
Yes, so, this past month on the calendar for school lunches, I had noticed that had said Indigenous Peoples' Day and not Columbus Day. I was wondering, what had happened to Columbus Day?
The school that run lunch menu is formulated out of Ed Advance, so that isn't made by our offices. That comes out of Ed Advance. So the other thing is, last year, the board had voted to identify Indigenous Peoples' Day on Columbus Day for the calendar, and I believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a proclamation you had forwarded.
But there's also.
Well, my concern is washing, like taking away things away from history. I'm fine with having Columbus/Indigenous Peoples Day. But once we had Columbus Day for so long, once we started to erase history, we have a lot of Italian Americans in this town. I would say more than there is Indigenous people. What? Don't tell me these. Yeah.
But also
In Spain.
And we went through without him, we wouldn't even be here today.
And he didn't even land here. He landed in the Americas.
Well, it's the
But
board,
also,
it is the board's prerogative to make a motion, put a suggestion on the floor, so whatever the board wants, we can do.
And also too, the White House did a proclamation this year and last year. For Columbus. Day. By the official, so it's not just. I think,
Sorry. I'm just curious. I don't know if that's possible. Is the concern about the school menu, or is it about lecturing with history?
My concern is that we were teaching about Columbus, Christopher Columbus, and I remember learning, I don't care, the school man, one thing, but that, I want to know what we're teaching in the school. Do we talk about Christopher Columbus and what happened, or are we only teaching about Indigenous people?
So it's
In that
more.
time?
So right now, we're in the process, as you guys know, of looking at social studies curriculum for K to grade 8. So that will be the work of the board now that the curriculum committee, we will be moving forward with the work around an explicit social studies curriculum for our district and being able to decide. So right now there's model curriculum, which is suggested curriculum that the State Department of Education puts out. However, as a local district, you have local jurisdiction over your own curriculum. The curriculum committee can decide what topics, if you will, or units of study are put forth in our social studies curriculum. So that is going to be the work of our curriculum committee to really look at that social studies curriculum in a robust fashion and decide what is appropriate and how this board would like to move forward with that work. Okay. So the goal would be to have that ready for implementation for next school year. So
I think,
We already had policy 6140, number 12. We have already said that we must teach Native American studies. That's in there. We're going to be teaching it, right?
that's through the legislation. So and that's K-12. So at some point throughout their K-12 career, they have to be exposed to that curriculum or offered that type of course. So there are course offerings that you have to offer, but a student at the high school level may not select that course to participate, but it has to be offered.
I think what Tori was saying is that obviously we don't want to erase history, we don't want to whitewash history, right? We want to teach the truth. And Indigenous Day, there's one, and since they're both again, with the competition, for both days, that it is concerned about not having just having.
Just the point, we're looking at our own calendar, it says holiday, so it says, FYI.
Because I saw the school lunch menu that said Indigenous people.
From a different company.
No, we understand.
I did not know that.
I would argue about this all night long, but I want to go home.
Yeah.
I am not a big Columbus fan, but we'll leave it at that.
Well, I don't necessarily love the guy either, but I'm not saying I want to teach him off.
Yeah, okay.
You gotta teach them
Well, he
good
just-
and bad.
So we do adopt our calendar.
That's the truth,
on an
right?
annual
Teaching the
basis.
truth, not just.
And
We did
actually our
discover
school
the
calendar,
Americas to the rest of the world.
No.
our school calendar is coming up in November is when we always vote on our school calendar and take a look at it. And last year, we just named it holiday. So you can name it whatever you want. Yeah, a lot of people have moved, even for like the Christmas, just holiday. So, and just,
Okay, so we'll put that one aside for.
another day.
And we do have one more opportunity for public comment.
Mr. Chairman, having sat in the same chair you sat in right now, I want to let you know in regards to Connecticut General Statute, in regards to the Gilbert School, and also representatives from this board, the 9 members of this board are the representatives that should serve on that board. No other person from the community, no other person who is unelected should serve. I believe the general statute is pretty clear. It's always been a person from this board. I know I served, as well as Nancy Canavo and Dory Smith previously. I served 2 years on the Gilbert board. So it's incumbent upon you. You were elected, well, some of you were, by the people. And it's incumbent upon you to accept the responsibility that you have to represent the children who go to school up at Gilbert. Gilbert is a totally different animal in the sense that it's one of 3 public institutions and private institutions that have the opportunity to have this school board represented properly up there. And I think it's incumbent upon you, Mr. Chairman, to seek out people on this board, first and foremost, before you go to someone outside. I'm not questioning her ability to serve, but actual being elected by the people. I haven't been elected. Neither is, Ms. Perez. She's been elected as a selectman. So furthermore, in regards to being forced to have your children vaccinated, I'm against that. And I want you to know that it's in the courts right now here in Connecticut. There's also the superintendent should be aware that there is still religious exemption for people who are grandfathered in. And those people should be afforded their rights and their responsibility to look after their children in regards to any kind of medical procedure that's going to be forced on them. So it should be up to the parents first and foremost. And that's going to be challenged all the way to the Supreme Court. And it's in the courts right now here in Connecticut. So thank you for listening. And I love to hear the dialogue and the debate. And it's very important because the community needs that. We don't need mandates, as the good superintendent stated in regards to language and reading. We need good people like you who serve on this board to make the right decisions for our children. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Right.
Darlene will track you down.